From down here is our guest today, and let's talk about the album, Glenn, the new album.
Yeah.
It's the 4th studio release for down here, I understand.
That's right.
Called The Ending is Beginning. Now, interesting title, Glenn. I think it kind of insinuates that maybe this is your last project as a band.
No, not at all.
That's not what this is all about?
No. It took us a long time to sort out the title for this album. You know, I don't know why, but in the past we've found album titles real easily. This one took a lot of work. But we landed on Ending is Beginning, as opposed to The Ending is Beginning. It's sort of semantics. It gets confusing. Maybe we should have chosen another one for that reason. But the album's called Ending is Beginning, and the reason we went with that is this album is an album about hope, and we feel what we've learned, I guess, as a band and as individuals, especially over the past few years, is in order for us to really get when we get to the end of ourselves, is what I'm trying to say. When we get to the end of ourselves, that's when we start new. You know, that's a new beginning for us. We got to hit that bottom point where we're like, I can't do this on my own. There's no way I can do this. I need to reach out. You know. And when you get to that endings point is where you're really beginning.
Okay.
And I think Christ's followers, back when Christ was being brought to the cross and hung on the cross, you know, we all know, I'm sure, that all these guys were thinking, what is going on here? This is all over. It's done. It's ended, you know. And really, 3 days later, it was a brand new beginning.
Little did they know.
Yeah, and so that's the message of this whole album. It's this message of hope, and I think you'll find that whole endings beginning type of theme throughout the album, sprinkled almost in every song.
Oh, wow, that's kind of neat. Now, when you guys hit the stage as a band, what's the goal for down here? What is it that drives you to leave your family for periods of time and minister in this way?
I think the songs that we have written, we'd like to say they're sort of a soundtrack for authentic living, and what we mean when we're saying that, it's not just a nice soundbite, but these songs really we get emails and stuff from people, and they're often saying, you know, that song was exactly how I was feeling, and we want these songs to be adopted sort of as prayers for other people. A lot of the songs, when you look at them, read through the lyrics, you discover that they actually are prayers, and if you can adopt them to be your own, then that's awesome. And so when we go on stage, we want to deliver that message, and specifically now this ending is beginning, hope message through the lyrics of our songs, and that people can go home and take these songs home with them and take them on as their own, you know. That's one of the things. We have lots of goals when we're going on stage. We were, like I mentioned earlier, we do some work with World Vision, and we're tirelessly doing what we can, trying to advocate for these kids and people who really need us when we've got so much to offer here. And you know, yeah, we have so much to offer here, and these guys, you know, I think it's $35 a day here in Canada, or a month here in Canada. If we can send that off to World Vision, boy, it sure makes a huge impact between giving them water and education and immunizations and all that stuff. So we've got a lot of things that we're after when we go out, otherwise wouldn't be worth it for us.
Talk about other artists or bands, perhaps, that maybe have inspired you individually or perhaps collectively as down here on your journey of 9 years in ministry.
I think musically you can trace some of the sounds of down here back to artists like Keith Green. You can sometimes hear in Mark's voice, who's our higher voice, and I think the message and artistry of Keith Green also is something that we like to emulate, not necessarily his sound, but what he said and how bold he was. We like to try and have some of that. Simon and Garfunkel, I'm going back in the 70s here for everybody, but the harmonies that those guys had, Jason and Mark are always trying to make sure the melody is the main thing and that the harmonies are very strong, because we have two really strong vocalists, and them when they're singing together, I think, is really what creates our down here sound. And then when it comes to the Christian world, I think there's groups like Jars of Clay and Switchfoot who we like to look up to. They're such an artistic band. They write great songs. The music's good. The lyrics are great, and it's obtainable by not just Christians. You know, like they don't water down their message, but at the same time, it's anybody can get it and they'll understand it. It's not like just using weird Christian terminology that no one else gets. And I think we really try hard to say the same old thing, but in a brand new way. And that's what the artist's job really is. We got to come at it from a different angle so that the listener can hopefully see something from a different light, because there's so many angles to even one verse in Scripture. I know when I'm reading the same verse over and over, 3 years later I'll read it again and it's like, wow, I didn't figure that out the last time I read it. I didn't get that from it. And so that's our job as artists.
And really that's one of the great things about Christian music is it's adding a freshness or newness to things that we already know, but just bringing them to life and bringing them to light again.
Pulling out a new angle that we maybe never saw before.
And I like that. I know in our area there's a number of Christian artists and bands that are trying to make a go of it full time in the music industry. Do you have any encouragement or counsel for them from somebody who's been at a successful level in the industry for a number of years now?
Do you want me to give it to you straight? And I have to agree. I have to say it's true. We have been doing this at a successful level, but what that successful level means, I think, is a lot different than what a lot of people realize. Like my wife and I, when we had our son, we moved back to Canada from Nashville. We were there for 3 years and lived with my parents for 3 years, and mostly I was out of necessity. And so being a successful artist means that you don't necessarily have all this money coming in and you're buying a house and all that kind of stuff. That's not what it's about anyway. And I think most people realize that, but it's just a good reminder to tell them. But what we always say is bloom where you're planted. So if this is where you are, you got to serve where you are right now, and other opportunities as they come, take them. But mostly serve in the area where you are. Listen to other believers. So we have, people will sometimes send in demos to our record label, and it's obvious that they should not have a mic in front of their voice ever. And we can't help but think, like, where are this person's friends? Like, the friends need to tell you if you're not really doing something. You want to encourage people, but at the same time, if it's not happening, it's not happening.
Honest encouragement.
Exactly. So talk to your friends. If they're being super encouraging, then keep up with it. If they think you should keep your day job, then keep your day job and enjoy the music still. It's not like you shouldn't do it, but maybe it's not a full-time ministry type of thing for you. I don't know. Is that?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
I don't want to be negative, but that's don't be realistic.
Yeah.
It's not an easy life. It's not an easy go. It's a lot of fun when you get into it. And the people I'm surrounded by, I think, have so enriched my life that I'll always look back on this time in my life as being some of the best years. So when you get there, it's great, but it's a tough go.
A good reality check. Glenn Lavender from down here with us on Faith FM this afternoon. It's 28 minutes after 5 o'clock, and you're homebound with Brad. Glenn, is there an area of discouragement that you found doing what you do? Are there so-called dry periods that you and the guys would go through when things just don't come as easily as they would other times?
The hardest thing is just being away from family and having our shows be in an erratic spots on the calendar, because we have months where we just have to take what we can get, and that happens more often than we like. And on those months, it's like you'll have a show Tuesday and Friday, and then the following Monday, and so that means I'm leaving town, and I've got 2 or 3 days off with nothing to do, and I could be with my family, but I can't spend $500 or more for a return ticket to get back home. So those are, for me especially, those are the frustrating things. But yeah, there's things that are frustrating, but we really we got a fairly positive outlook in the band, and so it's easy to kind of let, after those things pass, and just forget about them and move on.
Well, let's go from the perhaps the discouraging side to the other side of it, just before we let you go here. Is there something that God has been speaking to you about recently that you could leave us with today? A word of encouragement, perhaps, that